The future was briefly available on the Gibson and Epiphone website. Thank you to Mario R. and Brandon H. for sending this in, because it has since been patched. But if you search Back to the Future on either website on October 4th, this would show up. It's 100% confirmed that an Epiphone Back to the Future 345 is happening on top of whatever crazy custom shop and Gibson USA that we may or may not see. That's not necessarily new information here. It's we know the price. 100% confirmed, it's gonna be $1,000. Will you be buying one of those? It looks like we got a licensed Bigsby on it. They still left the exposed studs. For a tailpiece, if you want to run it that way, we've got our Veritone. Pretty low resolution photo, but it looks like we still have our regular 3-ply binding. And the photo cuts off right where we need to see if we've got the inlay, but of course we're gonna. But Epiphone has a different new model that we haven't talked about. This has been out for about a month now, but I didn't see any advertising on it. It's one of those fancy EDS 1275 double necks. However, this isn't like the usual Epiphone version. It's white, which is really eye-catching, but do you notice the specs? It's kind of been Jimmy Page-ified. You've got the really long tailpiece as well as the uncovered humbucker pickups on the 6-string side. If anybody's in the market for one of these, I would be open to doing a new guitar day. Let's face it, I've got the energy to do about one double neck a year because it's a 12-string and a 6-string all in the same episode. It looks pretty fun though, because we got the Epiphone Kalamazoo style headstock. I haven't really kept up with Epiphone and their doubles, so I'm not sure if that's the first time that's been offered, but it's certainly unique. The only thing that catches my attention is, not my favorite, is the 3-screw truss rod cover. But don't be looking for this at a dealer shop. It's a .com exclusive that they are giving you a case for, and it's $1,000. And they must be selling pretty well if they're gone. Doesn't look like anything fancy on the electronics though. But now Gibson has a few brand new offerings we can talk about. It was about a year or so ago when they revamped their mandolin series. We had the crazily expensive $20,000 Ceramona burst, which, just look at this thing, absolutely gorgeous, right? I'm not much of a mandolin guy, but even I can say, yeah, that thing is fantastic. It had the figured woods in the neck and all the right fanciness. And apparently bluegrass people have money because they are sold out. But then, slightly more affordable, less fancy, you had the $6,000 F5G. But don't get me wrong, those things were still quite fancy in and of themselves. So we have a new $20,000 one here. This one's being advertised as the Sierra Hull Signature F5 Master model. What I find really interesting about this is I didn't realize signature mandolins were even a thing, but then again, I'm not the target demographic for this. If I was going to spend 20 grand on one, I'd probably go for this one because I like its vintage looks. Whereas this one is a bit more modernized for this fantastic artist. We've got all the fancy ornamentations from the stinger on the neck, all the flame figured woods. But what I find really interesting about this version is they opted for a satin style finish. They called it VOS varnish. I'm not sure if that's different from their usual satins, but when I watched this video that you're seeing some snippets of, that was the big thing that stood out to me as being different. And hey, I just noticed this Sierra burst. Sierra Hull, okay. It's a bit more of a rustic cherry burst, but you get her signature on the truss rod cover. And then if you know to look for it, right down here, you can also see it engraved into the tailpiece. But she got not one, but two. She must be the Slash of mandolins. It's $8,500 with a similar finish and stylings going on. But man, this one just seems like such a much better value, because it's not like they took the stinger or the signature or any of the fancy ornamentations away. It does get a slightly less fancy case. I'll tackle a mandolin if anybody wants to new guitar day one. But next up, the Hummingbird Standard has a new hue called Purple Burst. Here's what it looks like. It's purple, then it's a burst. It's more of a Merlot burst rather than purple, but that might just be what it looks like over top of the spruce. I do like the yellow wings of our Hummingbird over here. It contrasts against everything else quite beautifully. But then when you flip it over to the back, they decided to do a black back. That's a missed opportunity not to leave that like a dark purple or something. Because that's my favorite thing about the acoustic guitars is seeing the wood grain. But otherwise, it looks like things are pretty basic on our headstock. But always good to see more purple love being thrown around at Gibson. But if you're like me and want to see the wood, you might like translucent teal. I saw this one get listed on Reverb by a couple of dealers, and I was like, whoa, okay, that one catches my attention. Reminds me of like a spearmint flavor. It's got the really really crisp white binding, and again, the yellow of the flowers and the wings helps pop everything. And then you can just barely see through to our mahogany back and sides. Personal opinion, might not be my favorite color on an acoustic. I would never choose this one as my only, but if I was having a Hummingbird collection, I could see how this would be attractive. We just recently reviewed a 1960 reissue Hummingbird if anybody's interested in learning more about this Gibson acoustic model. They have now introduced an LG2 all mahogany, faded this time. I don't know if this is a return for this model or what, but hey, satin finished, all mahogany including the top, nice smaller bodied acoustic guitar. It could be fun. This one's called Vintage Sunburst. It appears we're rocking the black binding on the back, and it's being offered for $2,400. But it does have an undersaddle piezo system, and I've got to say, really digging the rosewood wood grain on that bridge. But if that dark burst color's not your thing, they also have natural. But remember, it's mahogany. It's going to be very dark, but this one with all that sapele-like grain going on the top still means you can find some interesting figuring. Seems Gibson is going heavy on the acoustics lately. Next up, the Satin Finish ES355 got a new color. Smokehouse. Yes! I think that's the first one that looks good in my eyes. I mean, nothing against your Vintage Sunburst or your Cherry. These are still nice. I just think the Smokehouse pulls off being a satin dulled down finish way better. It's like an old baseball glove or something. Worn leather with just a little bit of a burst. So that way when you see the maple wood grain showing through, when you get the light shining on it right here, it just matches the vibes of this thing. That's pretty snazzy. And nice, they are indeed doing the burst on the back. Not so sure about the sides, but how's our neck? Interesting choice. It appears to be ebony. And if we really zoom in here, you can see it's the open pore ebony, as is typical. And those are being sold at $3,000. Next up is the 70s Explorer. New color, dark walnut. Previously, we had antique natural for that more traditional look. A classic white for the superstar rockers. But how do you feel about dark walnut? I feel it pulls it off quite nicely. It reminds me of some of the vintage E2s, just without the laminations of maple. And this is still mahogany rather than being an actual walnut wood. I think my favorite thing about this particular one is actually our fretboard right here. It's got some streakiness within it, but that's going to vary example to example. Don't buy one of these thinking you're going to get this exact guitar. Gibson's website isn't quite there yet, but my goodness, the day it is, it's all over. But that one's just a color change. I don't see anything else new. The 80s Explorer also got a new one. Previously, it was just jet black ebony. And while technically classic white exists, it's more so a myth. I've only ever seen factory seconds and maybe a handful of firsts ever come up to the market. It's on Gibson's website, but I've been waiting, 3 years now to be able to buy it? But now we've got Cherry, which is a nice finish, don't get me wrong, but it does not get me excited personally. Because the thing is, there used to be faded Explorers and Flying Vs, and they were a fantastic value. And you could get them in the worn cherry finishes. So my mind always goes to there, especially when we're looking at a decaled headstock rather than mother of pearl. No binding on the neck, regular rosewood fretboard, no additional ornamentations around our edges, very bare bones, basic uncovered humbuckers. But to be fair, it is technically a gloss finish, so a step up from those, but I just don't see how these compete very well against the used market offerings. Priced at $2,500. I'd like to see like a Pelham Blue. I could get excited for that. But another one I am super excited for, Moss Mist. This is part of their Custom Select series, which means small batch of these. It's a 54 reissue, but in like this really deep, but yet slightly light green finish. It's not quite as dark as some of the olive drab greens that we've seen in the past. It's a little bit closer to the Oxford gray. But it's like pea soup, moss, whatever you want to call it. I don't think I ever would have thought about speccing a 54 reissue custom in this color, but it works. What makes the 54s unique is they are just a mahogany body that's carved up, so you do not have a maple top on these, and you get the legendary Alnico 5 staple pickup. Whether you like the tone or not, you can't deny how classy those things look. And you get the matching back and side finish. It does not appear to have tinted aged lacquer, which is kind of unique, because if you come over here, the knobs are aged, but the lacquer's not. I guess come to think of it, our tailpiece and other things are as well. I'm kind of surprised not to even see the VOS swirling on this one. It appears they just went straight gloss, which could potentially be a selling feature for somebody. I know I like the minty fresh ones, and a lot of other buyers do too, but they tend to put the VOS on quite a few of them. But at $7,500, how much of a premium is that? Looks like $600. However, keep in mind, this has the VOS treatment, it's got the aged lacquer. So if you subtract those from the price, I think it's more like $1,000 premium. It's hard to turn down the original look on these. But you gotta remember, there's collectors out there who already have this, and that's why something like that exists. As well as for somebody who just doesn't wanna fit in with the crowd, be crazy. And last but not least, we've got the ES339 having a few new hues. So it looks like we had a cherry and an ebony that's transparent, and then our new one's honey burst. That's okay. I haven't reviewed a 339, I don't think since, what, 2019? When the Joan Jett signatures came out. They're basically just a smaller body 335. I think that finish works really well, especially with that bare natural neck. But do you see what they did there? A little bit of a bursted edge towards this center, where the neck joins onto the body. Either that or that wood was just particularly beautiful there. And then in the figured department, they used to have blueberry burst, 60s cherry, and for October, the dark purple burst comes over here. Wow. If all of them look as good as the stock photography one, yeah, I'd certainly have to review one. Some of these dark purples get a bit too dark, but from the lighting in this particular situation, you can still see that flamed beauty figuring everywhere. That's nice. And on top of that, we get the small little block inlays. I've always enjoyed that feature. The back of the neck is black, as we can double confirm here with this new photo set. But the body has that same flame maple veneer on the back, so you'll have some more fun there. All right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed talking about these new models with me tonight, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.